Are you still in orbit?
I am, but not really in what you would classically call an orbit, per se. My ship is fixed above Cairo. In that sense, I suppose you could call it a geosynchronous orbit, although I am not actually at a geosynchronous for what is typical for one of your satellites. 100,000 people positively focused can actually outweigh the energy of 1 million people negatively focused. Because it's integrative and thus then geometrically more powerful. Because the 1 million people negatively focused aren't cohesive.
Okay, based on that being a truth, then how is it that we're in the situation now where the majority of people on this planet do not want war, do not want the things that we're being led into, yet it's still moving in that direction?
Because they are still holding on to the last vestiges of the idea that you call power. And they must change their definition of it so that they understand how to use the power of the illusion instead of falling under the illusion of power.
As their equity is wiped out. Furthermore, the holders of the mortgage debt will also have a loss. These losses will be greater than they would have otherwise been had government policy not actively encouraged over-investing in housing. And you go on to say, because so many people will invest in housing, the damage will be catastrophic. Congressman, how could it be that you knew this on the banking committee in 2003 and nobody else did until after the collapse?
Well, I would think the easiest explanation is Washington, D.C. is permeated by Keynesian economic thinking. Very few even know the name Austrian economics and understand the business cycle. I was concerned about the building of the bubble since 1971 when gold was de-linked from the dollar.
Again, the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States. Now, what is this action, which is very technical, what does it mean for you? Let me lay to rest the bugaboo of what is called devaluation. If you want to buy a foreign car or take a trip abroad, market conditions may cause your dollar to buy slightly less. But if you are among the overwhelming majority of Americans who buy American-made products in America, your dollar will be worth just as much tomorrow as it is today. The effect of this action, in other words, will be to stabilize the dollar.
So since that time, the bubble has been gradually being inflated, but it got out of hand in the 1990s as well as after 2000. Bernanke taking interest rates down to 1%. To me, the biggest surprise was, although I was very concerned in 2003, I was concerned before that, I'm surprised it lasted to 2007. That's when the bubble really burst. But it was amazing how long it lasts. And to me, the more amazing thing right now is not only has the financial system collapsed, which is very, very bad and very dangerous, I believe that what we're moving toward now is the collapse of the dollar. And the collapse of a dollar, because it's the international reserve currency, I think is going to be much worse than what we have already witnessed.
Insiders Only, where I talked about the death of the dollar. And, you know, it sort of started with Venezuela asking for their gold back. And then China made a deal with Russia where they would hold each other's currencies and not use the dollar. They'd have each other's currencies in reserve to settle international transactions and not have to go from their currency to the dollar to the other country's currency. So they'd skip using the dollar in international trade. Then China and Japan made a similar deal. Then we had Germany and Switzerland ask for their gold back from the New York Federal Reserve. And then after that, India bought oil from Iran with gold instead of using U.S. dollars. And now there's talk about setting up a bank for the BRICS countries, a BRICS bank. Now BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And so they want to form a trade union without having to use the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency. And the World Bank and the IMF are supporting this. So these are the nails in the coffin of the U.S. dollar. When I wrote my book, the U.S. dollar was 70% of the value of all the world's currency. And more than half the dollars exist outside the United States. Today it's 60%. But if this happens, if this BRICS banks happens, that means that it's going to drop below 50%. Now, if half the dollars all reside outside the U.S., where do you think those dollars are going to come if nobody's using them outside the U.S.? They're all going to come back here, and that could cause raging inflation. But regardless,
it's going to be a global calamity, because when governments have the ability to create all the money they want, you better believe they're going to exercise that power. And you better believe the result is going to be a huge amount of money created, huge moral hazard, because every financial firm will know the government has the power to create all the money it needs, so they can be as reckless as they want. We just print up the money. And the result is going to be massive spending, massive debt, unpayable financial and fiscal crises. And here we are living through it. And it's amazing to me that Americans actually think they've got a choice here. Well, gee, I could vote for this one or this one. Are you kidding me? Who's the only one who could explain to you what's going on, who did explain it to you 30 or 40 years ago when nobody was listening? And who's the only one who can form a coherent sentence about the Federal Reserve today?
So all this money spent, and all this policing of the world, and all this deficit, and financially, we're coming down. I mean, just today.
But that's a real challenge, because I think that the way our system works currently, those who end up with power are actually ultimately falling into the corruption.
We understand, but as we have said many times, you will realize that one of the things that's happening on your planet now, and the reason you may see what you call to be escalating negativity, is because you're getting it all up out of your system and onto the table so you can finally decide when the right moment comes exactly which way you will choose to go.
So do you see us as moving out of being the masters of limitation soon?
As we have said, it is unlikely we would be having these conversations at all if we did not see that you were generally going in that direction. Soon is a relative term. The idea is, however, again, as we have said, by taking the reading of energy we perceive to exist on your planet now, that it is highly likely that the systems you are referring to, that you support, because after all, you are your governments, are you not? Yes.
Well, I'm trying to take that back.
You do not try to take it back.
Well, I'm moving
you
actively.
Are your government.
That is my position.
All right. Then, all you need to do is, in a positive, constructive, and loving way, act like it to the best of your ability, which I know you are doing. So the point simply is the more of you that do that, then those that, shall we say, use the manipulation system will no longer find themselves with any footing eventually. The old systems will just collapse, but the new systems will be in place. It's not about changing the old system. It's about having new systems in place that represent what you prefer, so that when the old systems collapse, the new systems will be ready to go.
Always analyze gold first, because gold tends to drag silver around with it. And silver is such a heavily manipulated market that it's really hard to analyze, because the charts have all of this man-made data in it, where it's somebody is manipulating it. But what I see here is that if this head and shoulders pattern works out, if it rises and breaks the neckline, you flip this upside down and you've got basically $44 silver. And then it runs into a resistance level of this previous peak. And so it would probably do a little pullback from there. Well, if it does, then there's another bigger head and shoulders. This entire head and shoulders pattern becomes a head. This dip becomes a shoulder. So if it did a pullback and started rising again, you have another head and shoulders, and when you invert that, you'll end up with about $60, $65 silver, and I sort of find that exciting. So it's double the price range of where we're at today.
When we truly love ourselves, we radiate love to all life on earth, to all life in the universe. When we love ourselves, we radiate constant joy. When we truly love ourselves, we radiate love to all life on earth, to all life in the universe. When we love ourselves, we radiate constant joy.
When do I have to get ready? Well, if you wait until the crisis, it's too late. If you wait until the crisis, it's too late. It's too late to buy gold and silver. It's too late to take advantage of the wealth transfer that's going to happen if you wait that long. You want to do it while the prices are low and while the news isn't that bad. And then you're prepared. And when the crisis happens, that's when you sell, not when you buy.
That sell the biggest lies make the biggest money now. Those that provide no real tangible value for humanity make millions of dollars a year. Those that have the most psychopathic and short-term plans stepped all the way to the top of power everywhere. This is the kind of world we have been in since the Hunts lost their battle in 1980. 32 years of increasing debt and degradation of society as humanity adjusted to the cutthroat nature that developed when sick people control societies. The good news is the system is reaching its mathematical and cancerous end. Our money is corrupt, our politicians are corrupt, our banks are corrupt, our corporations are corrupt, and the cancer of malinvestment has spread so far that it will kill off the once vibrant host. Cancer might see itself as a superior force like our current rulers, but cancer cannot survive without a host to feed on. We, on the other hand, can live much stronger when we don't have to carry this cancerous paradigm on our back. We are the ones that have to deal with taxes and regulations and divorce courts and crappy jobs, and yet we still are able to eke out a decent life. The criminal elite cannot function in a world where they cannot prey on innocent people by selling them lies to sacrifice for their cancer. They need us, we don't need them. This is what the silver bullet and the silver shield seeks to do. Empower people to walk away from this cancerous paradigm before it collapses, and to accelerate it by deleveraging their illusionary wealth system.